What's up, everybody? Just want to take a quick second and let people know that I am self-supported. I now put all of my episodes on Substack for paid subscribers. I put them up early, and then 24 hours later, I release them to the public on all my platforms. I also have Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, Zelle, a P.O. Box, and Locals, Patreon. And all of these, all of the links are in the show notes of every single episode I put out. So look forward to continuing to, provide great conversations. And thank you all for your continued support. Hey guys, it's been. I love the powerhouse dynamic duo bringing the regulars together. And I know you guys were just on, and Melody, you and I were going to talk solo. And I thought, well, you know what? Dave wants to join. Like us talking on the phone, I'd rather grab it and put it out to the world. So thank you both.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Mike, you should ask your audience to honestly say, should you really be inviting Dave? I think they're suffering Dave overload. Dave's not here, as they say in Firesign Theater.
Well, I don't know. That's true. Remember when you were gone for a little while? People were all wondering, where you were at. And everyone was concerned. I got messages from people. I mean, I think Melody, you might have messaged me wondering where Dave was. Matt Smith was wondering where you were.
Yeah. Okay. I should disappear again. That was fun.
No. Mike and I'll come find you if you disappear again.
I know, and I know where to find you, actually.
He does. He's a stalker.
I think this is probably the fastest turnaround I've ever had a repeat guest on, considering you were just on yesterday, Dave, and talking with Aaron. And so it's perfect timing for all this. I mean, we spent 2 hours talking about AI, and then Michael Burry is back in the news. Was it late last night or yesterday? And Melody, you listened to it, and share with Dave and I what your thoughts are on that conversation.
Yes, please do. Yes.
And get all fired up too. Don't hold back. Let it go. Let it rip. Right, Dave?
Obviously, Aaron is very smart, and I can tell that. I'm not. I've certainly followed some of his work, not religiously, but what I would say, there are a couple of things in that conversation that struck me. So first of all, what I do know is I know corporate America very well. As I was saying to you, Mike, I was a prisoner there for, over 20 years. I know how these corporations work. And the problem is that, AI within those corporations, they simply cannot be successful delivering on this right now under this current kind of operating fashion of the corporations, which is that they have to relentlessly do share backs, make sure that they're making money, are giving it back to the shareholders. We do not invest in research and development anymore. And so I can tell you, if you're living anywhere except for in the tech bubble, and you can be in the tech bubble and against the tech bubble at the same time, if you know what I mean, because this is the technocracy. These technology folks, it's almost like a cult, and they have a belief system that most of the United States does not share. And so you have to keep that perspective that even people, because they're surrounded by all of this ideology, their understanding of the world, and they're very much steeped into it. But what real world application really doesn't concern them as much as I want to learn all about me. So let's take the Aaron example of the mapping of his genome that he quickly did and how. But so I would ask, to what purpose is that? I can tell you that people were born with genetic markers that said they might get a disease that they ultimately never got. And he kind of mentioned saying things like, well, now I need to do vitamin D supplements. Well, how do we even know? I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm not real confident in any of our science anymore of what is actually. So we have this thing where we're told, okay, this is what this means. And so you're believing there's some and I'm probably going to get this wrong because it's been years since philosophy, but a priori, like reason, like there's some baseline truth, right? That somehow they can build on top of AI. And I'm probably not making any sense, but this faith in sort of a foundation that this stuff could be built onto, I think is a little bizarre. And it reminds me of, and I've met so many of these tech guys, and they aren't living in reality. It's the reality they want to create. Oftentimes, based on certain lack. And I'm not saying that's Aaron at all. I don't know him. I mean, I like I say, I respect a lot of his work, but I want us to, so firstly, I can tell you this, that AI in corporate America is not going to be a thing at scale for some time. And in fact, we'll probably have to go through the crash before we get there. But then secondly, for what purpose? Because I can tell you the companies that use it, people are furious. They're angry. They don't want to use those companies anymore. They don't want to call and get a chat bot. And so we're being forced in some ways to accept this, but I think humanity is going to say, no, thank you. And you will start to see shifts in consumption around, I want to work with a company that doesn't do this, that I'm not talking to a chat bot. I think, so when we get the
chat bot.
Yeah, chat bot is probably better. Yeah. And so I think once
there's an analogy here, by the way. Let me just jump in on an analogy. You used to call and you'd always get overseas help desks.
Right.
You're getting more American help desks now. So you're saying the free market of ideas will bring it back to a human level. But I do believe that we're going to go through the valley of death en route. I don't find what you said inconsistent with what Aaron was saying. Aaron loves the stuff in his own way because that's his world. I mean,
that's right.
As he said, he started an online shopping network before Amazon did, right?
Yeah.
This guy
he's been in
zero.
It. Yeah,
he
is.
He knows his world.
Yeah.
And
Agree.
so I think Aaron has this amazing mix of enthusiasm for tech and fear of the technologists. So I think he sees this cult of personality,
right,
as a problem. He acknowledged repeatedly it was a problem. So in many ways, I think that what scared me about Aaron's discussion was that he was able to see both sides, and he left me under my desk. He had me thinking, holy shit. And I do think we're going to overdo it. I think companies that are right now failing for good old-fashioned reasons are saying that they're laying off people because they want to go into AI, and it's just a cover story, so they don't have to say, oh, by the way, our customers are no longer buying our product.
Mm-hmm.
They say, oh, we're going to cut employees to do AI, which sounds very upbeat.
Right.
And I think it's just a pure scam.
Well, that's what Melody touched on. I mean, cut you off, Melody, but that's what Melody touched on in our last conversation, that it was just a big smoke screen for how bad things are. And to add to that, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. They're closing 300 Wendy's restaurants. I've never seen, I mean, the Big Bacon Classic, like I grew up eating that. Like, I've never seen those types of, like, to that sounds like a lot to me, no? This episode is brought to you by McIlvaney Financial Group. Their advisors bring a depth of knowledge and experience that allow them to serve their clientele with care, ensuring their financial needs are met now and in the future. Personally, I'm not saying cash is worthless, but you can see what's happening. It's worth less every year. Gold is the opposite. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to www.mcilvaney.com/coffeeandamike. 300 Wendy's restaurants?
I don't know. Here's something I noticed. I noticed I would drive by McDonald's post-COVID, and I thought they were printing money because the line of cars was very long. And then it clicked one day. I go, it's one cash register.
Also, they have
one cash register,
and they have labor shortages because nobody wants to work those jobs. This is why people would say the airports were busy. It was like, no. They're really not. There's people like piled out in the concourse because you can't get a table in the restaurant because there's nobody there to work. And so there's just so many, I think, optical illusions. But yeah, so I agree with you, Dave. I felt like he did. He definitely talked about how a lot of it wasn't there, right? But he talked about how a lot of it he thinks is there. But this is, I think, I was left with after that conversation is what purpose? Like what purpose? Like what are we driving toward with this technology? Because I told Michael this before you got on, I used to be the biggest enthusiast around tech because I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to do better customer service. We're going to improve people's lives because you're sitting in corporate like with Band-Aids and, popsicle sticks and you don't have enough money to do your job. That was what my corporate life was like. And so I was like, oh, we'll get efficiency. Everybody will be happier. And then, project after project after project after project just completely failed. But it's like, okay, so if we take the premise, and you and I talked about this before, that, bullshit jobs, right? That's the reality. It's like we've got a bunch of BS jobs, and I would argue that mine was. Like if we really were focused on productive jobs, like what part would AI play in that exactly? And what future are we driving toward? And I feel like those, and I'm not talking about like within even what he was saying, it's as if, well, we have to do it because they're going to do it. And if they do it, they're going to crush us. So we have to do it. And I find that reasoning, I
don't think he was endorsing that. He wasn't endorsing that, in my opinion. What he was saying is that is the reasoning being used. That's why Sam Altman is saying, you have to support us, and why Jensen Huang is saying China's going to win because he's really saying to Trump, you have to dump more money into Sam Altman so he'll buy my chips. And so I do believe that there is an arms race, and there's going to be N-1 losers. and where N's the number of big players. Now, the problem is the big players are huge. They're enough to sink the Titanic.
So I guess my point is, like, a lot of his message was, you have to get this alternative tech. We have to work really hard because we're going to lose. So even he's not using the logic, say, of Jensen Huang or Sam Altman about, government involvement. But his overall message was, we're running out of time and we have to fight this. And so I don't disagree that we have to forge some sort of resistance to that future. But I think that it's not necessarily by AI. I got to be honest with you. So
I hear you. I hear
yeah.
you. You're saying go from AI, make it, dial it back.
So what do you think, Melody, then is the best course of action then?
The best course of action is, honestly, I think we need to have real conversations about what is this? What is the purpose? Like, and, I saw a tweet, I don't know if it's true, I haven't had time to look into it, about the fact that China's not building any more data centers, and they have way fewer than we do. So why do we think we already have 5,000? I've seen them all over the road empty. Or now, after I did that tweet, it's not because I did that tweet, but after we hear from Zero Hedge that there's a data center sitting empty, it can't come online because of the power, and then you hear about a couple more of those. So so are we in a false race? If you believe the whole, I think all of us are just wondering who's in charge, right? But if you believe the globalist narrative, then that would include people from China, I'm sure. They're global citizens. And so what is this, just a fake arms race? Is it just, and everybody knows it. And so, except for all of us useful idiots running around thinking, because I can tell you, it's very easy to get excited about a lot of this stuff. And again, this is not about Aaron, because he has been in it. Like Dave said, he has been around for a long time. But I think you lose sight of what exactly is this going to do? What exactly as humanity do we want this to do? Where are we trying to go? I guess would be my question.
I said something that I think is correct, and that is the more micro you go, the better it will work. So I think as you bring AI to street level, you get success, and that is it does tasks. For example, that I mean, I think it could replace a lot of doctors, because I think a lot of doctors suck.
But if they didn't, would it? Like, so our doctors suck. I mean, they're it's just terrible. They just write prescriptions and they don't. But if they didn't suck,
prescriptions, right?
Yeah, if they didn't suck, would it replace them? Because a good doctor, and I met one a couple weeks ago. I couldn't believe it. Still somewhat indoctrinated, but thorough, looking at the whole person. Okay. So if doctors didn't suck, would we really need it? Would we need, for instance, Dave, what you described, like the database where, hey, like, here's some of the symptoms. What do you think? And then the doctor would say, okay, well, let me maybe test for that. But if I'm a good doctor, I'm not going to take that I'm not going to take that for, like it's the word of God. I'm just going to say, oh, like you described when you're talking to Aaron about how you use AI today. Like you don't know where to start. Let's figure out, let's just find somewhere to start. And so we're using it to address a problem that we need to address the problem versus, and so I think that we need good doctors again. And AI is not the answer. So I guess that's where, my head is on it.
This reminds me, by the way, of when I drive by a mall that's dead, and I ask, was that a fair trade? The convenience of Amazon at the cost of all the retail.
Right.
And I think not. I think we need both, and we've over. So what did I hear? I heard the railroad build out, for example, is not unlike the AI build out, where they built railroads everywhere, and then there was this gigantic bust. And so AI is going to go through that, and I don't think that's debatable.
Right.
Again, I said I was on a panel discussion, and they kept confusing the AI is here to stay. It's not going away, and I absolutely believe that to be true. But what it actually does is totally not imaginable to me. But AI is also going to be part of a very big financial bust from the perspective of an investor, and you can't confuse those two. So the internet was phenomenal, but it didn't prevent you from losing 85% of your wealth if you had .com stocks, right?
100%.
And so the railroad bust, here's a stat I heard something like 50%, some big percent, I'm making up a number, but it's not 2%, of the tracks that were laid were used once, and that was to run a train out to pull them up.
Right.
And so they overbuilt the railroads.
Right.
On the other hand, a great government program was a president who gets very loud. When I was a kid, was way underrated. I think we now appreciate him. Was Dwight Eisenhower, and his building the interstate highway system was phenomenal.
I agree. It's one of the best things this country ever did. Yeah.
That's right. He came back from Germany and said, holy shit, they've got highways. We don't. We've got to build them. And we didn't do it stupidly. We built beltways around D.C. and we built interstate highways. And you can get from A to Z directly. And
Exactly.
we should have probably done some better railroad work. We probably should have let the railroad bust reappear and the railroad boom reappear and done a little better on that. But so
I think what all this, it's like, what do we want society to be? So, and I think, he sort of referenced that the people that think this is going to be nothing, or whatever, they're going and they want to, grow vegetables. And I don't know exactly what he said, but here's the thing.
The guys who want to grow vegetables are guys who are trying to get voters for the Democratic Party.
I grow vegetables.
Well, they will be voters for the Democratic Party.
But I think, again, we're in a mania, right? And one that's an unhappy one, as you've described, Dave. And I think you're absolutely right. It's a misery mania. And it's like, okay, so maybe let's step back and ask, what do we want society to look like? We want people to have jobs, right? We want to make things again. In fact, had we spent all that COVID money on updating our infrastructure, addressing the power grid, which I have a new theory, guys, that part of this BBB bill was really to address the grid because it is in such bad shape, but they couldn't sell that. They had to sell, we need it for the data centers. We need it because it's in a very precarious position. But had we spent all that money that we spent in COVID, instead of trying to get people to consume, had we spent it on infrastructure, we would have been in a much better place. Those highways are in terrible shape in many states across this country now, because I do a lot of driving and it's not like it used to be.
I think COVID, I have this theory and I haven't been able to let it go. And it kind of hit me back when they did it. It is that if you look at what was happening in the monetary system in late 2019, it was doing its repo spikes,
right,
which no one has ever explained in a way that I thought conveyed a knowledge. There's people who explain stuff. I go, I don't understand what the hell you're talking about, but I believe you do, so I'll take it. I don't think anyone ever explained the repo spikes. To me, they were an emergent system. It was a teenager on black ice, fishtailing like crazy, and I can't rule out the possibility the lockdown was to put the economy into an induced coma.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I definitely agree. You could see all the signs were there.
They were already cutting rates and panicking in late 19.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. And they were sure at the ready in March.
And going direct. The white paper from BlackRock, they said the next crisis we have, you're going to have to go direct, which meant give money straight to the people, not to the bankers, which they gave a token gesture to the people. The crooks got more, and then, of course, the bankers got it all. And the fact that in October of 2019, they're talking about the bailouts, which showed up in June of 2020, is staggering. It's too coincidental for my taste.
What do you think would have happened then if that didn't occur?
We wouldn't have locked down.
No, I mean, but in terms of, you said the economy, like they were already panicking from a rate cutting. What if we would have never had the lockdown? What do you think would the system melted?
I don't know, because I don't know. I literally spent 2 hours on the phone with Grant Williams one Saturday night talking about the spikes. And we got to the end of the call and we concluded we had no idea what was happening for 2 hours pushing and pulling on the story. And there was there's spastic movement. The system was going emergent. You keep putting off the inevitable. It just is going to make it worse. It just someone once asked, why can't this go on forever? And Richard Russell of Dow Theory fame said, go into your kid's room, start stacking blocks, keep stacking, and what happens? And you end up with a stack that's so high, so displaced from equilibrium, that the tiniest little shock will cause a catastrophe. The blocks will all tumble. And so that's where they've gotten us to. They've now gotten us to the point where we've got this metastably tall stack of blocks. And again, my term that I actually like is that we're in a complacency bubble, in that everyone knows the system's all fucked up, but they think they will be protected. And that is a level of delusion. That's like the Jews in Germany in the 30s saying, well, this will pass by, right? They might not pass by, right? And so the complacency bubble is this notion that somehow, even though it's bad, we will somehow come out of it fine because we always have. And the answer is no, we haven't always come out of it fine. We've gotten destroyed many times. And now, and there's a paper by Akerlof in 1996. I reached out to him and he said, yeah, this paper keeps getting life every time I think it's dead, it picks up life. And he basically wrote how the bankers make money both on the upswing and on the downswing.
That's right.
And it's So they will, when it's time to, squeegee the deck, they will do so. And the people who think they're going to protect us, they will protect us enough that we don't pick up guns and start shooting people.
Because nobody wants the pitchforks. Nobody wants the pitchforks coming out for them.
If they can.
I have to admit that I really feel this. There's a lot of what's happening right now feels almost scheduled. Just the cadence of the narrative busting that we're seeing. And so, the two words I really couldn't get out of my mind last week and the week before were just scheduled demolition. With the shutdown, with the narrative busting on AI, with the narrative busting on housing, suddenly everybody's talking about the builders. I've been talking about them for, 2.5 years. So I just feel like it feels as if, the moment is arriving. I wouldn't say it has arrived, but that we are, each day we kind of get some sort of busting of these narratives that have been so strong for so long. So it feels almost scheduled, which would, kind of go to Dave's point that, there's opportunities on the way up. There's opportunities. And my theory that the banks are actually salivating about buying up all the non-bank mortgages and things for pennies on the dollar, probably backstopped by the Fed with some sort of facility. So, I think that I think it's important to remember what Dave is saying on the, Go ahead.
No. I was going to add to that. I got lots coming on tomorrow from Unicus Research. The other part of it, the repo on the automotive right now.
Right. And the cockroach, right? The cockroaches, suddenly, I can tell you, there's so many cockroaches in the system. The fact that we haven't seen any more before this is kind of shocking. But suddenly now, they're just coming left and right. And you can argue, of course, that that's because really lending is tightening. They can't get credit. And I agree with that as well. That's part of the cycle, though. But it's like overnight, we're suddenly talking about what so many of us on FinTwit have been talking about for several years is now suddenly in the press.
And again, this bubble, I'm not saying this time is different, but every bubble is different.
Yes.
So this time will not be different to the extent we're going to get hosed yet again. This has got a stage 4 cancer feel to it to me, because it's gotten into every nook and cranny, anything that has a price associated with it seems to be involved in this. Whereas previous bubbles, the .com swallowed up the .coms, right? And a lot of capital. Do you remember back then when Janus, for example, was the big tech fund? And it was clear that we were toast because Janus had such a high percentage of these various tech company shares that there was no way they could liquidate it. And there's this famous story. I don't know if I've told it on Mike's, but I think I got it from Peter Schiff, who I'm not sure is talking to me because I'm now a Holocaust denier, apparently. But he said that some guy's buying egg futures and he's making money, and then he's going, this is good. He buys some more and he's making money. And pretty soon he's buying egg futures by the time he's getting stinking rich. Then he realized, okay, this is a bubble. I got to get the hell out. And he says to his broker, we got to sell now. And his broker says, to who? And he goes, what do you mean? He says, you're the Eggman. So there is no buyer.
That's right.
There will be no buyer, and there's going to be big air pockets. And I'm watching Mike Green get more and more catatonic. And Mike is interesting because I think Mike, with each talk, he is getting better and better and better at presenting the case with clarity. So it is like a comedy act. It's like anyone who goes through a pitch. Your elevator pitch gets better and better and better. And I think Mike has understood his own model better with each passing year. And he understands the risk of the system going emergent once the flows reverse. And he sent me a draft of a paper that he's written, and the math went right over my head. It was really, it's like, oh yeah, Mike, I'm going to check your differential equation there, buddy.
Right.
But there was one thing that was missing. I hope when the paper comes out, I hope to see it. And that is, what was missing was a clear paragraph for idiots to say, here are a half a dozen things that could cause the passive flows to reverse. Once they reverse, all hell breaks loose because there will be no buyer. And you could say, oh, I think Nvidia is a bubble, but you own an index fund, so you only have one choice. You get to sell the entire market or not. And that means you can't selectively get rid of your Nvidia. You can't selectively get rid of your Mag 7, which means you think you're safe because you own Philip Morris. No, because that index fund is going to sell Philip Morris and Nvidia and everything because that's the only choice. And unlike a portfolio where you can sit there and look and go, I'm going to sell this today, and okay, I probably ought to get rid of that one. One keystroke, you can dump your entire investment portfolio.
Is that
scary?
Is that what Michael Burry? I mean, he's been just in the headlines.
Explain what's going on, please, because I'm picking up shards of it, but I don't understand what's happening. What's happening with Burry?
The last thing I saw from him was that Scion Capital, is it going to be paused or he's dissolving it?
No, he deregistered.
Deregistered it. Okay, October.
Yeah.
Was it middle of October that he did it?
It was October 27th was the letter.
Go back to the start of the story. At the start of the story, I think he said he was going to short Nvidia, right?
Well, the start of the story, in my opinion, is when he sent the tweet in 2023 and said sell. And I don't know if you remember that, but I was a big short fanatic, so I was following him back then. And I know from everything I was tracking, that looked like the moment, honestly, that everything was going to capitulate and we got the banking crisis, et cetera. But he sent that tweet sell, and he took
That's all it was, Melody? That's all it was? It's just, he wrote just sell?
Yep, sell. And
I do remember that.
Since that tweet, the S&P has gone up 76%. And so, his first tweet back on Halloween, which is 4 days after he sent that letter to the SEC requesting deregistration, is when he says, you see bubbles. Sometimes you can do something about them. Sometimes you can't. And then, though, a few days later, we do find out that he has taken short positions in Nvidia and Palantir. And by the way, he used to be a big investor in Palantir. So I remember I used to look at this is when I was just a baby moron playing in the stock market. I would look at his 13F and be like, okay, let me play around with those stocks. And I just got to the point of everything I learned. It's like, I don't want to be invested in Palantir. They gross me out, And so I remember
payday lenders sound better, don't they?
Exactly.
Prison REITs sound better.
Prison REITs sound a lot better. Like, I was just like, I don't want to have anything to do with this, So it's interesting to me. He used to be invested, that he's taking that short position.
So why did he unregister Scion at the moment that he appears to be making a move? Is that because he doesn't want to have to deal with customers?
Could be. It could be. I mean, he took so much crap from his investors previously, during the last one. Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. And, and then that's when he tweeted out, he's like, that was me then, and that's me now. And I think probably, and the position is very small. I think that's the other thing. Like, it's a very small position for like $9.2 million, right? On CNBC, they were saying 912.
Where did I hear 150 million? I thought I heard 150 million.
CNBC, so he did a tweet correcting all of them. That was hashtag at WSJ, at Fox, he's like, you people can't read a 13F anyway. And he says he's got something coming November 25th. And so maybe he's starting a family office. Maybe he's doing something else. You remember at the end of The Big Short, he had stopped investing altogether. Like, he invested in water. That's what it was said at the end of The Big Short. So
there's a guy named Dickerson or something years ago I was in email contact with who was talking about water nonstop. Dickerson, I'm not getting it quite right, but it's something like that. And he was talking about water. He says water is the future. You got to invest in it. But I wasn't convinced that there was a rational way to invest in water. I'm not sure there's a rational way to invest in anything but gold or whatever. But
Right.
Yes.
So with him though, so with Travis and Mitch we were talking about is, this guy, Michael Burry can just throw something out there and twist people into the wind and get everybody, he's so cryptic of what he does.
Right.
But he's not going away.
Unlikely not. Unlikely not.
Not even close. No.
But so because we're in this moment in time, my brain had to go in the other direction with this as well. You think about Michael Lewis and his books, right? He wrote The Big Short. He also did one on COVID. I don't know if you guys read it.
I read all Michael Lewis's, and some of them have been disappointing, but generally he's very good.
Yeah. So the COVID one is, if you guys read it, would probably be horrified with how he, there's a doctor that he profiles in there as the person who really got California on the right track. So it's a little interesting to me that he.
Is that Cariotti? Who is that?
Charity Dean,
Yeah.
Chastity Dean, something. Yeah. And so it's kind of interesting, the books he does write, right? So there's a part of me that wonders as well, like, okay, is this a signal? Is, Burry just also part of the system? If you know what I mean.
Whistle? Is he the dog whistle? Okay,
right.
Michael just blew. It's like we talked about ever so briefly. Bill Gates just said climate change is not what we thought it was, and I'm going, if you think he's just muttering to himself, you're dreaming. That is a clear statement that the whole climate change narrative is about to be squashed like a bug. And again, Aaron pointed out very astutely, in my opinion, and I agreed, and I'd already thought about this, is because it's in the way of the AI story. Right. So I think he's dead right about the AI story being big. I think he's right that there are tasks that you can do 100 times faster with what is, just the fact that you can ask AI a question and get an answer rather than ask Google, say something to Google, which now has AI, but I think it sucks. Say something to Google and just get a bunch of links. I mean, it really is the next level, in my opinion. And to the extent, so to me, AI, as I use it, is the equivalent of a summary of the first 2 pages of a Google search.
Unfortunately for me, it's often just so wrong, it makes it useless. Like
that's why you have to use it as a starting point, not as an end
and so this is where I think we all have to stop and think, like, so it's not making our kids smarter, right? Our kids aren't getting smarter.
Oh, it's going to crush them. What's going to crush them?
It's not making them happier, right? Anxious nation. These kids, they're all anxious. They can't talk to each other. People are marrying their metaverse Claude person. Like you just saw the story in China. The lady broke up with her boyfriend of 3 years, and they had a whole ceremony. And by the way, I know someone who fell in love with their Claude as well. Wanted to get a physical manifestation of it in some way. I mean, guys, I feel like we're in mania and we're not thinking any of this through. Like, okay, but let's say, so just take the arms race out of it, right? Let's just take that out of it. Let's pretend China's not doing it. Let's pretend nobody else is doing it. And we have a choice about whether we go there. What is the purpose of AI? Because we already realize we have a whole bunch of bullshit jobs that we don't need. They're not making anybody's lives better. We've stopped investing in research and development.
You know who first predicted that? It was Keynes. Keynes predicted we'd do 20-hour work weeks. What he missed was, we'd do 40-hour work weeks, but we'd do David Graeber bullshit jobs.
Or 80 hours, which was my life of just total
and then
bullshit.
There's the famous story from I think it was from last year, where the woman died in her cubicle at
and they didn't know
Morgan, and they found her 5 days later.
Right. And I lived that world. So let me just tell you that the lie that I was told is that technology would make my life better, right? And all of us employees happier. And in fact, it never delivered on that promise. My workload just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the way, like I shared with you last time, a lot of these tech companies are not even using the real technology. They're using humans.
Indian
right.
code writers. That blew my
Right.
circuit. That blew my
Right.
circuit.
And so, I think that if we need to stop and have a real conversation, because we're believing the BS of like we have to play. Like we have to play. Do we? Do we really have to play? Like, is our goal so our goal is to go to space. Why? I mean, why do we want to go to space?
Well, it was military.
I mean, so if it wasn't for the what would going to space be for the good of humanity? I mean,
no, it was military.
Right.
Military's never for the good of humanity.
Right.
But so your point is well taken. But I think the problem is that whether it makes sense or not, I think we are going there. And and now your optimism is that there will be a free market solution that basically pulls back,
self-corrects. I'm not convinced of that is the problem. I'm not maybe eventually, but I'm not convinced it's going to be on a time scales that we're going to benefit from it, right? So like the Soviet Union was a bad idea, but it took 70 years for that idea to unwind.
It took 84 years for people to stop believing in the mechanical Turk. So yeah, I don't disagree, but we've been talking about AI since the 50s. I mean, it went underground for a long time,
Wasn't the first use of kind of AI the Turing, the code breaking story? Didn't they somehow use kind of an AI strategy to break the German codes?
Maybe.
Yeah,
I have to look.
Well, they definitely used an AI approach to teach Big Blue to win at chess, because what they did is they had to play itself.
Talk about the mechanical Turk real quick, Mel. Dave, are you familiar with the mechanical Turk?
No, I was going to let it go just because my ignorance was sticking out. But yeah,
I know what it is because I read Melody's Substack, and she referenced it in her latest Substack, which I encourage everybody that's listening to go on and become a paid subscriber to. Melody's, which she'll plug later. You can plug it right now too. But talk about the mechanical Turk.
So, like in the 1800s, they built this machine. Okay, like it was supposed to be a robot. And they would go around touring, and the robot would play chess and win. And this was a big exhibition. And
a guy was in it. A guy was inside it.
And there were several guys. It wasn't just one guy. Over the year, it was several different guys. And they just kept doing, like, they were in a museum. They were in an exhibition. It's like, so I just feel like we are trapped, Dave. We are trapped in this very
I totally agree.
Smartly created narrative, right? And it's like I think because of my background, and I am in no way an expert. I just dabbled in coding and things like that. I just don't believe that we're somehow going to jump the shark, that this thing is going to reach consciousness or be at a point where we could trust it doing anything. So why is no one talking about, for instance, the AWS outage that brought down the entire world for 15 hours, like a list of, hundreds of companies. And by the way, what do they blame it on? An automated task that had no human intervention. But
that's what scares me, because I think we could end up doing shit this way, even though it sucks and we're going to suffer.
Well, hopefully not, because hopefully people are going to wake up from this stupor. I mean, honestly, and I know that sounds naive, but I believe in humanity a little bit more than I think most people do. And it's easy to debunk. It's just like you were saying, Dave, like you can get it to say ridiculous things like I forget which Lindsey Graham,
That was so funny. That was so funny.
It's hilarious.
God, that was funny.
But it's such a great example. So if you and me, I mean, so at some point, so the bill's going to come due. Like, here's the thing: nobody talked about it during Amazon's earnings. It's going to take years, but I guarantee you, there are companies out there right now sending them, "We're going to sue you, or you've got to pay us back." The other thing that people don't understand: in corporate America, you have to have what's called a BCP, or a business continuity plan. I'm sure the university has something similar where you have to have a plan if everything goes in the event of a disaster, etc. This is every public company has one of these. And I can tell you that it's very strict about how long you can be down to pass muster with the regulators. And so 15 hours down. So I convinced, and I'm sort of feeling badly about it now. I convinced a rather large bank to get onto AWS. And because I had reviewed all their specs, I was like, this thing ain't going down. The redundancy, like all of this. And so getting them to go to AWS was a huge thing because you're so regulated. And so for it to be able to go down for 15 hours, whoa. And so maybe the entire market didn't realize what a big deal this is, but it's going to have massive implications because if I'm a big bank, I can't just have AWS now. I need my server farm back. By the way, who went down like a few days later? Azure, Microsoft. So I can't even have a dual strategy of AWS and Azure, which is what a lot of these companies do for their redundancy. So it's a big deal that nobody's talking about, all because of a task, a bot run task. So,
well,
sorry.
It illustrates the risk of the World War III being hackers, right?
Right.
I mean, that's a, I've been compiling a list. Who was it? Grant Williams and Adam Taggart were talking about the fourth turning,
Right.
and Adam made reference to, they were talking about institutions that built up over the previous turnings fail. And Adam said NATO, and Grant said think more destructive, the US Constitution, things like that. So I've been actually formulating a list of institutions that I could fathom failing, academia in its current form at least, right? And I was talking to someone about it today, actually, and they were talking about correcting. I said correcting is a methodical correction. Failing, it will be an emergent. Again, the term emergent keeps coming back to me. Emergent is when you've completely lost control. An earthquake, an avalanche. They're emergent. They're no longer under control. You have to simply wait till it's done doing its damage. And I throw in there various countries, Canada, United States, Israel, Ukraine's already sort of on the chopping block, right? And so there's Western democracies in their current form look like they're great risk. And I collectively call them Western democracies. The whole idea of civil liberties, freedom of speech is all a great risk. And so I just think that we have the capacity, despite how irrational it is to still do it. And part of it's because the world is now, again, as Aaron points out, the world is now being run by technocrats. And it's a small handful of people. And, these are the guys who can, they want to release mosquitoes that sterilize the females so they can breed, but then the females get sterilized. And I did a little quick math and said, wait a minute, they'll go extinct. It wasn't just the population will thin, they'll go extinct. And some say, well, but they're an invasive species. I go, they'll go extinct globally. And you go, well, there's other forms of mosquitoes. I go, you just drove a species to extinction. You don't think there's going to be a consequence of that in the biosphere, right? In the food chain, and we do when cold fusion hit out of what University of Utah, somewhere out west, and Hans and Fleischmann, and they said that from a palladium-based electrochemical outfit, you could generate fusion at room temperature, which would be a truly monumental change to mankind. in a positive way if you don't blow it. And within a month or two, something like 150 research labs had failed to reproduce it. Now, one of them asked the question, if I generate cold fusion in my lab, will I regret it? Mm-hmm. Right? They just did it.
Right.
Right. They just create viruses that can kill mankind. They just do it. This will be cool. And they don't ask the question, yeah, but what if? Right. And I think that's where the AI does scare. Brad Weinstein in the idea that AI is sort of organismic. He said it's like a toddler right now. So it starts out and it doesn't know squat, and it's just slowly learning. And he says at some point the world could be such that we don't know where decisions are coming from. So you put in your credit card and it doesn't work, and there'll be no one who knows why it didn't work. There'll be no person who can override the system. And
but don't
so
you?
it'll be
go ahead.
But
don't you think that's when as humans we create alternative economies, right? And
yes.
every
yes.
time you have an underground, you have a black market, you have an alternative economy spring up because they're like, wolf, as humans, we figure out like how to get around this stuff because we're like, oh, you're going to do that to me? Well, then I'm going to figure this out a different way.
This is the Bitcoin community, by the way.
It is them.
Community.
Yeah. But, and also in many states across the United States, they're trying to pass taking gold as currency, and it's passed in several states. And so, we'll figure it out. If they try, I've seen the terrifying videos of, once we're in the CBDC and the social credit system, and they're terrifying, about how you have zero freedom. You can't even decide if you want to cook a hamburger for dinner or whatever, it's that kind of control. But here's the thing, there's always somebody, there's always, a rebellion. There's always an alternative that crops up. And so,
but it doesn't have to be on a time scale that doesn't totally suck.
Right.
That's the problem.
I think so. The thing that I've just noticed about the tech crowd is their reality is very different from ours, and they don't spend a lot of time. I know you live in the woods, Dave. I live on a farm and am surrounded by beauty.
Well, I have a cabin in the woods, but I don't live in the woods. I live on a lake.
You live on. I'm sorry. Okay, you live on a lake in a natural environment. And and I think that it's very humans transcend nature, right? Well, I don't believe that. I live in nature and it beats me up all the time. Helene beat the crap out of this area, for instance. Some might say it wasn't completely natural. I don't know. But the point is, that's something I've realized very early on in grad school when I was studying these things, that I don't believe humans transcend nature. But the tech crowd does. And they believe that they can figure it out. And I think that's a hubris that sort of makes it impossible for them to contemplate certain questions because they can figure it out. And I guess I've come to a point in my life where I realize I can't figure it out. Like, I'm not in control. And that's probably where my faith is, so anyway.
But never has so much power been concentrated in the minds of so few sociopaths.
We think.
So look at Sam Altman. Holy Jesus. Don't sue me, Sam, but you, when I look at Sam, you know what I see? I see a face that looks like AI.
He doesn't even look real to me.
He looks like dead eyes. He's got the AI dead eye look.
And he can't even finish a sentence. Like, he can't finish a sentence.
But he has so much power right now.
Does he? I feel like he's going to be put out there as the sacrificial lamb. Him and Jensen Wang, because So again, this is I try to step back and look at things with.
Then we'll have to watch Jensen Wang's aunt for the next 5 years on Yahoo Finance homepage, the AMD lady, right?
Yeah.
Let me do an experiment. Here's my yes. Yahoo Finance page. Picture Jensen Huang. Wait a minute. No, he's not there today. Holy shit. Holy shit.
Yeah, I think those
No.
two might be the Sam Bankman-Fried of the AI movement. Like really.
Well,
I mean, there's just
Jensen Huang has a bad history.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very bad.
Right.
Who's the guy that blanking on his name when I spoke to Jack? He was the character in the movie in The Big Short with Steve Carell.
Michael Intrator.
That's the guy who was sitting with Steve Carell and
Correct.
and
Michael Intrator.
What is he tied to? CoreWeave?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. It's all the same characters, Dave. It's all the same characters from all the old bubbles. They're all playing a part here.
Michael Saylor, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, it is almost it's so ludicrous. It's almost funny, but I kind of feel like just watching narratives, right? I mean, Altman.
They're fucking around with our retirement accounts and stuff is
Exactly.
the problem.
Right.
And right now we're winning, and so everyone's okay. You know, the masses are getting their 401k boost, which, by the way, today the Nasdaq's down almost 2%. And so one of these days it will go down. It will go down in earnest. And the average person thinks 20% is a correction. If it goes back up within the next year and a half, you corrected nothing. A correction will take this sucker down 80%. It will stay down, and that will correct the overvaluation. The average boomer will be toast. Because the average boomer right now, their net worth is overvalued by approximately a factor of 3. And if they haven't accounted for that in their financial planning, they're going to be in for a rude awakening somehow. I'm positive that it's actually fourth grade arithmetic. It's not a prediction of a bad GDP. It's just the valuations are just way out of whack.
Do you think? I mean, we're in a deflationary period right now. Wouldn't you say,
No.
Melody?
Well, I don't think that we are in it yet, but I feel we are heading there. Yes. I mean, I do.
Asset deflationary, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yep.
Here's an inflation metric. Let me bounce this off you, since we have we must have at least 100 listeners to this. Here's an inflation metric that I think would work. You identify 100 business owners who keep track of the costs of their inputs. A plumber, an auto mechanic, a guy who owns a convenience store, anyone who, you can pick 100 different and just say, tell me what has changed in the costs of your inputs over the last calendar year.
Right.
That would give you a measure of inflation.
Right.
And they would know the cost of labor. They would know the cost of the materials they had to buy. And we would find out what the inflation rate is. The psychologists say that, the more data you have, the less informed is your decision. So if you have one time a girl wanted to go to grad school, and she kept giving me reasons why she didn't want to go to a particular grad school. So I said, what are your 3 most important parameters? And she gave it to me. I said, you should go to Columbia. She gave me a reason why not. And I said, you just used a reason that's not in your top 3 to veto a grad school. And so I think that there's that you like the Truflation metric.
Right.
It's what, 1 billion prices. So I think Truflation probably is a direct spinoff, not just a mimic, but a direct spinoff of the MIT Billion Price Project. Is that right? Do you know if that's true or not?
I don't know that for sure.
But you can measure 1 billion prices, but if you don't know how to statistically weight them, they're not worth anything. They're not worth anything.
No, I think Thatcher had the right way to measure inflation. She bought milk every day. And
well,
things
but
like
milk
that.
could get cheap. But the point is,
Yeah.
the Big Mac. That's why the Big Mac index actually has, because there's a lot of different inputs that go into a Big Mac. What it fails to account for is that it has shrunk. The Big Macs have shrunk.
The shrinkflation, right? Exactly.
I once took a 1967 Sears Roebuck catalog, and it must have been in 2017 because I must have been looking for a 50-year comparison. And I started going through and trying to figure out if I could take the prices from the Sears Roebuck catalog and compare it to the prices today and get them. The problem is there is a need for hedonic adjustment because they are not the same products.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that's where, but year to year, year over year, you ought to be able to just ask 100 business people, what's the change in your inputs? What's the rate of inflation?
I think we've made it completely, we've overcomplicated it. You're telling me that right now we have this company called Placer that can basically count active cell phones in any area all across the country, but we can't figure out how many people live where. And, so I think that we have created this overcomplicated system so that you could have all of those economists working at the Fed, right? I mean, this is way simpler than it.
I'm going to get you in trouble.
Oh, no. Okay.
Candace Owens claims there were 12 cell phones at Charlie Kirk's talk from Israel.
Right.
Now let's get back to our scheduled program.
See how? Well, you know what I want to go with this is the whole deflation period, because this is what I don't understand right now, because it appears that they're devaluing the dollar, but yet if we're in a deflationary, if we go into deflation, the dollar will get stronger. So I'm confused.
The dollar's a lousy metric. The dollar.
I think. Yeah. Thank you.
The dollar.
All right, then help me. Help me here.
It's like the smartest retard in the retard gallery, right? I mean, it's just we can say retard now because Trump's elected.
Right.
That word came back. By the way, for those who are offended, look, retards are not people who are born deficient. Retards are A, your siblings, B, your best friend, and C, someone who has all the brain power they need and still acts like a retard. That's what a retard is. So if you're offended by it, get over it. I don't care. I have much bigger fish to fry than fighting off retard haters.
Right.
Go ahead. Right. So the bottom line is the dollar is a fictional debating point.
So then talk to me about where you think this is heading in terms of deflation, inflation, stagflation in the short term. Melody.
You want me first? Yeah. So, I have gone back and forth, but I'm more of a Lacey Hunt. I believe that we are moving toward deflation. I think that people, when they came out talking about price controls for some of these investments the government's going to make, that to me was a sign. But also, we're at a point where you can say the median home price is XYZ. Well, it's just not, because we are in a frozen market. We are having no transactions.
There's no prices.
There's no prices. And so, right. So I think if you go onto these listing sites, you can see price cuts all over these listings. They just haven't sold yet. And so and it's the same thing when you think about the Wendy's closing. Are you telling me right now, this is what happens is
Chipotle
and all these, it's like, if we can't pay these prices, which is what's happening, we can't, then we will get deflation. And so a lot of people argued, like when the BBB came out, that, in probably like 12 to 18 months, we would start to see inflation ramp up again. I think that overestimates our health of where we are and just how dire things are, because things are falling off a cliff. I mean, most markets like housing are frozen completely. And the only people that can transact are the top 10%, but they're even pulling back, which tells you, I think, everything you need to know. So that's where I think we're headed, personally.
I love the stats in the home builders cutting prices aggressively, because one thing they had trouble, but they didn't go bankrupt in 08, 09 because they could see what was coming. Did I tell you I was flying on a plane with a guy who made split levels in Arkansas? And I said, how's business? Business is great. And then I started poking. Right?
Yes.
This was probably '07, right? I started poking and I said, who are your customers? He says, retirees. And I go, how many of them pay cash? He said, none. He says, they're all getting a mortgage. And I said, so retirees are getting a mortgage, which makes no sense.
Right.
No sense. Unless you want to make the argument that my money's better off being somewhere else. So at a 2% mortgage rate, okay, but it's 2% for a reason. By the end of the conversation, he was slicing his wrists because he knew exactly what the problem was, and I just made it kind of come to the surface on him, and it was clear that we were gonna hit a bridge abutment. I have another funny story. Lacey Hunt, who used to very matter of factly talk about deflation or inflation, and it was very. It had a sterility to it, right? So he would just say, well, this will happen, and I'll go, we're gonna die, Lacey, we're gonna die, right? And one day I noticed a change in the tenor of his voice. I sent him an email and I said, Lacey, I'm sensing a change in the tenor of your delivery now. And I said, is that correct? And he says, you would be correct. My wife is making me take a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the inflation deflation debate, it's going to be pockets of everything. Asset deflation, bigly, right? I mean, they're all out of whack. That could be superimposed on, inflation of all. It's the classic inflation of shit we need and deflation of shit we don't. Well, we need our retirement accounts and they'll be deflation.
That's a really good way to put it.
Right.
How will the retirement accounts be deflation though? This is what and let me say this and you guys jump in. Is it like, say for example, if Nvidia crashes because so many people are tied to that, and I say ordinary people, their retirements, their pensions are tied to it, that it's going to just decrease the value of it so much. How does that, like, I get from a housing standpoint, if nobody's buying homes, the values are just going to plummet on it, right? Same with cars.
Well, so let's say you have $1 million in your retirement account and you're a boomer, and you look up and it's now 500,000,
right? Which,
by the way, is my optimistic case, right? 50% is optimistic to me,
right?
Is that deflationary or not? The word. So we're taking something as complicated as the weather, and we're describing it using one of two words.
Right. I agree with that.
So if I said, "Oh, how's the weather?" and you get two words to choose, you're gonna fall on your face real fast. So
I totally agree.
It's a bad language. The prices of some things will go down badly. The prices of other things will go up badly. People will not have jobs, so the amount of income will get pummeled. And then the passive flows could finally reverse.
Right.
Just a recession, which might be why the Fed's so afraid of a recession. They might even know that they might be listening to Mike Green and saying, if we have a recession, the passive flows are going to reverse. And according to Mike, we're going to hit air pocket after air pocket after air pocket once that starts. So it's possible that a butterfly flapping its wings recession could trigger a reverse of the passive flows that then, again, the word I like, emergent. It then people start saying, look, if I lose any more, I will be screwed. I have to sell now because I just can't afford to lose more. And then it will lose more. Now, there will be no bidder this time because the passive flow was passive, and there's not going to be the appearance of a passive flow.
Right.
And short sellers are dead. So short sellers sell the tops and buy the bottoms. And so they round out those sharp tops and sharp bottoms by becoming the buyers. They're the first to buy. They go, well, the market's really gotten the shit kicked out of it. I think I'll cover my shorts. And they will be the first ones to enter the battlefield and start buying. There are no short sellers. The short sellers have been obliterated. By the way, I think short selling is for fools and pros. And I think they're becoming a Venn diagram overlap of unity. And so there's no Jim Chanoses out there. David Einhorn has said, look, that whole system's broken. He's not out there hanging over the end of his surfboard, shorting the shit out of stuff.
Right.
There's no short sellers who are going to be buying.
So with that, then in a deflationary, and now I don't want to say the word because I'm oversimplifying it, but I mean, do you expect this to be way worse than 2008 in terms of values of homes?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
It's not to me.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes.
I think they will deflate to the point that they match household median income again. And I think we have subsidized the housing market to death. It started 100 years ago, and we have now, I think we have kicked it completely to death. And we are going to have not just a correction in prices, but we are going to start looking at housing differently. It is what I see, and we're going to look at it as shelter again, and it's going to have to match income. And all of this speculation, and this isn't because we're all going to wake up and realize how stupid we were. It's really just going to be because, unfortunately, we're going to have a large amount of homeowners pass on, and you're going to have this glut of supply that's already out there. And I mean, this is why everybody's talking about the builders last week. They are in terrible shape with all of that supply, and they're lying about how much is actually out there. It's at least 25% more. Dave, they didn't get out with their smarts last time. Lennar got a bailout. They did.
So they would have gone bankrupt. They would have gone bankrupt. Okay,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
I was amazed that they didn't all go bankrupt. I was amazed that the builders didn't, and apparently they did. And got put on life support.
They got put on life support like so many companies did. And had they not, like I remember, Mike, the very first time you and I talked, and you asked me, should we have not had a bailout? And I said, I can, as a person that was working for a company that had a bailout, I can say we should not have had it. And then we wouldn't be dealing with this auto ridiculous right now, because a player like Ally wouldn't have been out there doing the same crap all over again. So
or if we had a bailout, it should have been I'll give you the name of the economist who says charge at high interest rates. 19th century economist.
Chancellor. Oh no. Okay.
You know who I'm talking about. The one who says, lend dearly.
Yeah.
So the bailout should have been, okay, here's the deal. I think, for example, bailouts should be contingent upon things like, okay, if for some reason you need a bailout, the top, define the C-suiters. I don't know how you define them. I'll let someone else figure that out. But let's say the top 20 highest paid guys in the company have to give up all of the last 5 years of their compensation. Those boys and girls would behave themselves a lot better if they knew. They wouldn't be hanging off the end of their surfboard saying, well, as long as the music keeps playing, we got to keep dancing. They'd be going, holy shit, I'm going to lose all 5 years of my compensation in about 6 months. And so they wouldn't let us get there. Now, the problem is that then the system wouldn't be so profitable for the rent seekers. As I've said a million goddamn times, anytime it's profitable to buy up a company, sell off its assets, load it with debt, sell it into the open market, and make a fortune by destroying it, monetary policy is too loose.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be able to do that. And so I am, again, the most bearish guy on Twitter, and I'm also the only guy on Twitter who thinks they had to raise rates, not lower them. I think I got into it with a friend, and he was emphatic that we have to get the rates down to make houses affordable for the younger generation. I said, no, bring down the prices.
Right.
Don't bring the rates down, bring down the prices. Bringing down the rates, you're trying to save the boomers from bloated asset prices.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense at all to me.
Since 1971, mortgage rates have averaged like 7.71%. Like It should cost money to borrow money. Like it's just that simple. And also, that's why thinking about this whole debate around the 50-year mortgage, it's like, well, while we're at it, why don't we debate the 30-year mortgage? Because that was a construct that came out of the Depression from FDR, which is what I thought was so humorous.
Who was a sociopath, by the way.
Correct. And also likely, well, I won't even go there, but we now
Soviet
Right.
controlled. Yes, I know that drill.
Right.
That's what got me in
Right.
trouble.
Right. Yeah.
So
Right.
so FDR was a compulsive liar. His Depression era projects were all targeted to buy votes from swing states. So FDR,
And many of
the
them
only thing
were
he is good for
awful.
now is when you want to grow government, you cite FDR.
Will the 50-year
Yeah.
mortgage have any impact on this, Melody?
No. We've got a 40-year modification right now, and people are failing out of it left, right, and center. What's like I still oversee some client books, and you'll see that they'll get evaluated for this loan modification, the 40-year mod, and in fact, their payments come in once you run it through the model higher than the original payment because of the increase in insurance and taxes. So it's
What's
not
the longest duration on car payments now? What's the longest?
7, I think, right?
I
think
heard an
it's
8. I thought I heard an 8, but I'm not sure.
between 7 and 8. And then there was like somebody spoofed and said the White House was talking about 15 years. But anyway, thing is, all across the world, guys, nobody else has this 30-year mortgage thing. And, mortgages are 5 to 7 years. And that's the way it has been since a very long time. And it's more like Canada where they have the adjustables. But this is why I love The Price of Time by Edward Chancellor. It's like, if you are borrowing money, it should cost money. I mean, like that is just, and that is the way it has worked since before we could write. We scratched it on a wall.
He's so old fashioned. You don't listen to Edward.
Come on.
Which
now.
by the way, I love this book.
I love that.
Totally
I go to
agree.
sleep at night to it sometimes.
I've read everything of his. And then you've got this problem with the bloated credit system for used cars. So in the olden days, when you bought a used car, since you had to write a check or hand out $100 bills, the prices stayed down, but they created this bloated credit system. And so now there are people buying used cars that are 3 years old, which are the best 3 years of a car's life, for 20% below sticker. Because it saves them 20%. They somehow think they're getting a good deal, or it's the only thing they can afford, or whatever, right? What a horrible invention. What a horrible invention.
The average new car is 50,000. I think that's what Jack said, I think.
Is that right? Is that the average?
Yeah.
Median?
I think it's something like that. It's really high. Well, because I remember it, because I did the analysis where, when you went back, Ford wanted his employees to be able to buy his cars. And so back with a typical salary at Ford, you could get 2.1 cars a year. Now, when you look at the average salary for an auto worker, they couldn't even afford one car. So, yeah.
And everyone's buying a Ford F-150 for the record, right? That's the other problem. So I like to drive my car into the dirt. Well, I succeeded. I just sold my car for $700.
Wow.
and I actually was kind of hoping to get some more driving before it got to the dirt stage. But my mechanic calls me, he says, Dave, he says, what we can do here in this shop is going to cost you $3,500. But you got a fundamental steering problem, and that's going to be the expensive part. And he said, I got a friend over across the lake who buys Subarus for parts. I think it's time. That's like saying grandma's going.
Yeah, it's time to pull the plug.
Pull the plug. Amp up the goddamn pain medication dose. Respiratory arrest is a risk. Wink, wink. So Dr. Kevorkian will be in the chat with you.
But also though, with the subprime, with the auto lending, they were giving out loans to everybody. And you could do a 7-year on a used car.
Right. Yep. It was crazy. And the FHA loans, we now know 6% of them are going to foreign born. When everybody said that wasn't happening, it was happening.
Whose feet were still wet from crossing that river down there.
Right. So, I mean, and it's distorted the markets all over the country. I mean, it's just
okay. Help me with something here. Help explain the influence of illegal aliens on the price of houses, because the question comes down to where are they staying and what did that do to the price of houses? My knee-jerk thought was they're not getting mortgages, they're not buying houses.
So that was mine. Yep.
And that turns out to not be correct because why? Explain this to me.
Because there was no regulation saying you couldn't lend to them. It's called I-10 borrowing, and I didn't think it was that much because we don't have good data on it. And then John Burns put that data together. But let's take Portland, Oregon, for instance. There was a program that came out of the American Rescue Act where if you were foreign born, if you were an immigrant, you could get $30,000 in down payment assistance. And they got into trouble because they were not
for illegals. This was going to illegals.
Yeah. And so, because they didn't care. It's just, do you have an I-10? Yes. Okay. So, if they had a driver's license, they had that. So, $30,000.
So all the Uber drivers could buy a house now.
And now we're hearing that too. And how many of them were actually doing DoorDash and
buying cars probably.
And buying cars.
So the Uber cars driven by guys who don't speak English now are cars that are subprime lent cars.
Probably. Yeah. And so I went to Colony Ridge, which is the big, what I'll call a refugee camp is what it looks like outside of Houston, where it's 30,000 square blocks. There's about 30 to 40,000 people there, where this company did seller financing. And this is the other thing we're missing is a whole cottage industry has grown up that's not being tracked by anybody, but they would do seller financing with the illegals. And they would get them to sign a contract they didn't understand. And then they would, if they didn't pay, they would then do a foreclosure. And so they had a 47% foreclosure rate. That's unheard of in this country, because they would just basically keep doing this scam over and over again. And when I was at Colony Ridge, my buddy Travis and I went during the day. There was nobody around. That place was empty. And then come 4:00, every car hundreds and hundreds of cars coming back into this. It's called a new build site, but it's, if you saw this, Dave, and I did a video of it, it looks like something you'd see in South Africa in the third world. It is just open water, electric wires, live electric wires on the rabid dogs. It was crazy. But, here's the other situation is that this was all hidden from everybody's view. And so it made it possible to take advantage of all of these people. And I think that's exactly what you've seen in Tricolor. That's what was happening.
So Tricolor, and what's the other one? Limited Brands or something?
First Brands.
They were just scams from head to toe, basically.
It seems that way now. Tricolor,
because they didn't just default on some of their debt. Their debt just vaporized, right?
They were double pledging. First Brands, I think, is the one that was double pledging. And then there were, I think that there was just made up collateral. I can't exactly remember, but yeah, it's, we can now see it's fraud. And I think we're going to see that all over. So let's take the FHA program, which is what a lot of these not foreign born were utilizing. I believe that is now rampant with fraud, because you can look at entities that have originated, and 50% of what they've originated went delinquent within the first 60 days, which tells me that they knew, because this is on the back of the fact that in the FHA program, if you don't pay, you could keep going back over and over again to get a partial claim or get that money, that delinquent payments put at the back of the loan in a non-interest bearing lien, up to 30% of your unpaid principal balance. And so there was coaching going on out there as well, that you don't have to pay your mortgage for the first 18 months, basically. And that's all coming out now. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning where they spoke with a couple of my friends about the builders.
The entire Biden administration, they put a halt on anything having to do with having to pay anything back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, didn't they basically shut
18
down
months of
foreclosures,
forbearance.
evictions,
Yeah, all
car
of that.
repossessions, everything,
Everything. Yes.
and
So credit scores were inflated. Yeah.
Right, and now they're plummeting because I think it was in October that a lot of these programs, a lot of these rules disappeared. Correct?
Yeah, October 1, they put the guardrails on that FHA program, and it's going to have a massive impact because delinquency is already 11% in that FHA portfolio.
We know it's going to fix it. AI.
So I'm looking at this really quick. Michael Burry to take Scion private on November 25th.
Why? That's
this transition
into. You'd argue that opening a hedge fund would be the right time to open one. I think he must be saying, I don't want to deal with those podcast bitches anymore.
Well, he's saying this. According to this finance law, this transition into a private family office structure exempts it from public disclosure requirements for future trades. And then right underneath it is Ed Dowd saying more Christmas cheer. Verizon to cut about 15,000 jobs, according to the Wall Street Journal. Verizon.
How many people work at Verizon? How many people work there?
Not sure. Verizon to transition about 200 stores into franchise opportunities.
That means they're selling the real estate, right? Is that right, Melody?
Probably. I don't know for sure, but yeah, that's probably right.
It's like selling your planes and then renting them back, that sort of thing. By the way, you got to figure the airlines are all going to go south too, right?
Well, haven't they been for a long time? They've been bankrupt for years.
At one point, probably 5 years ago, the stats were that 66 bankruptcies had been bailed out.
99,600 employees for Verizon.
So they're getting rid of 15%. They're getting rid of 15% of their employees. That's a lot. Did they mention that they're going to replace them with AI? No, I'm not joking.
I know.
No, they're going to replace them with smartphones.
Yeah, I know.
Well, they said it's a decrease of 5,800 employees from the previous year when I just did a quick search. So they dropped 5,800 last year? Yeah, they went from 105,400 in 2024 to 99,600. And in 2022, they were at 117,100. But the highest number was 177,700 in fiscal year 2016.
Wow, that's a big drop.
But then it says here oh yeah. So from 2016 to 2020, they went from 177,700 to 132,200 employees.
I mean, it's these white collar jobs, they're just getting decimated. I mean, these layoffs are,
Well, at least Verizon's share price over the last 5 years is reflecting in some minor way. One could argue it should be down 95%, but in some minor way, it's down 32% in 5 years. You got to be very careful of PE traps, of dividend traps, of things like that. You can really think, I'm going to guess they have a massive dividend, 6.67%. Right? That's going to go to zero someday. It's just going to go to zero, and you're going to go, oh, I was really enjoying that 6.67%, right? And it's going to go to zero. And the reason it's going to go to zero is because their total debt is, wait for it. They have a total cash of $7 billion. The total debt is $175 billion. $175 billion of debt. And their revenue is only 137, so their debt to revenue ratio is out of whack.
And
we've just.
Oh,
go ahead, Michael.
No, I was going to say, because I was going to segue. Go ahead, finish what you're going to say, Melody, because I want to.
No, you go ahead.
We're talking about all this. We've talked about AI. We're talking about the corporations, but then the other aspect of it, auto loans, housing. But the other aspect is, what I talked to Travis and Mitch about. How these school districts...
This is Mitch Vexler?
Yeah, I had them both on.
Okay.
In fact, I suggested we do a conversation.
Has that been posted yet?
It's up. It's up.
Okay.
But, the fact that these school districts have pillaged the home equity by, falsifying or rounding up the appraisal values of homes to increase property taxes. I tell people this. People don't believe me.
I'm feeling that pain myself.
People don't believe me. People don't think it's possible. I've said this. I said this. A friend of mine. We talk about it all the time, and the idea of the pensions. like teachers' pensions, and he thinks they'll be able to protect them, and the teachers will get them. I don't put anything past these people. I don't think the money's there now.
Now, Mitch's stance is that the entire United States is basically bankrupt if you look at just muni debt. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Mitch is not getting enough traction out there. He needs sort of Michael Green level traction at this point. He somehow his name has to get out there more. I actually have my town's balance sheet sitting on the front seat of my car that I got from a friend, and I'm going to see if I can get through it and figure out if the town of Lansing, New York, is hopelessly broken or not.
Yeah.
And as you saw yesterday, that's why I asked Aaron about these data centers and the idea that we're going to put in a data center where I know we're going to count on those revenues and we're going to do stupid stuff, and that data center is going to be an empty shell. And it could even become a net negative, because you could imagine a data center somehow being a problem. Wells College up the lake, right? Wells College up the lake is now gone. In 1836, it's now gone. That's fine. We could get rid of half the colleges in the country. But what do you do with the property? It's still getting mowed. The lights are still on in buildings. Who's paying for that? Well, it turns out the state of New York's carrying Wells College.
Right. Right. And how much longer can they do all these things? Because so many of these municipalities spent like drunken sailors when they got the American Rescue Act money. And they thought, to, Mike's point, Mitch and Travis's point, that they looked at population studies that were misinformed. And they just said, okay, I've got 100 people moving here every day. And so this is how much revenue I'm going to get in the future. And they didn't get it right. And so they're all way in over their skis. And, it's to do things like I was talking to Travis yesterday to build a $62 million career student center for a town of 4,400 people.
How many? Say that sentence again, the entire sentence.
So they built a career center for students, like for $62 million in a town of 4,400 people. And they sold the bonds as actually repairing the roof on the school. So now they're going around crying because they didn't repair the roof, saying your kids are getting rained on, they're going to die of pneumonia or something. I mean, not really, but that's the narrative, right? And we've got to repair the roof. And I was like, Travis, I'll come down to Texas and help them repair that roof. Like, you don't need all this debt. And apparently they also did a huge stadium as well. I mean, 4,400 people. That's madness. It's madness.
Wow. That's let me do some quick math there. That's like $10,000 a person.
And now, so they were successful in that fight.
By the way, towns of 4,400 people, they tend not to be really rich people.
Right.
4,400. They tend to be Hootersville, right? They're not. Right. They're not some town on Nantucket. They're. Right.
So it's just a part of the grift. It's like you get a developer to come in and say, this is what you can do, and you could get people to pay for it through bonds. And I mean, it's just like
the bankers got their VIG.
Mm-hmm.
They got their fees.
That's right. And they got their fees to construct these massive new high rises in Dallas and Austin that they don't need. Probably never be fully occupied.
Are they going to end up getting bulldozed? Are they going to end up getting demoed?
Like
there's a bunch of high rises outside Manhattan that in the 60s got built under the Guns and Butter program of LBJ. The idea that if you just build a bunch of nice high rises and put a swimming pool in between them all and stuff like that, that you'd have a community where all the people who were previously living in the hood would be able to live with dignity. And they've demoed all of them. They're all gone now. Yeah. And it doesn't work that way.
I think you can see in Dallas right now, they just are attracting like the homeless and things like that. Those things are going to have to be bulldozed, It's in a lot of these subdivisions, just like last time and the time before during the Depression, and they were
So
built
is a
on the
place like
same
New York
site.
City, is a place like New York City filled with buildings that are zombies? Somehow it's just not being, they're not being outed yet. Some like
Yeah,
the Empire State Building, for example, became a zombie, whereas they cut some 100-year contract or something and failed to account for inflation or something. I don't know,
yeah.
and so it became unrentable. And I don't know what happened to it.
I
I
think,
read a book on the Empire State Building, but
yeah, I think even the Freedom Tower, they're actually lying about the occupancy. So what I did in
what's the
January,
Freedom Tower? What's the Freedom Tower?
one
What's
world,
it?
it's the new World Trade
World
Center.
Trade Center?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I guess it's time for another plane.
right. So I lived in New York City for 7 years. And then when I didn't live there, I traveled there all the time for earnings, working, under a GM company. And so in January 24, I decided to walk the entire city because I had not done that. You fly in for your meeting, you fly out, and you don't. And so Travis and I walked the entire city. And Dave, I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned. Like, it was January. And as a New Yorker, it doesn't matter if it's cold. You have to be outside. You don't have a choice, scurrying to and fro. And I was outside the GM building, which, is very close to the Trump Tower right there, like at the bottom of
What's
this
the address?
Central Park. It's on
59th? 59th?
maybe 59th. Yeah. And so I cannot tell you how many times I would roll up to that building and there would be probably 6 black sedan deep all across the front of the building. And, I would be taking one of those black sedan, whatever. We were there. It was not a holiday, random Tuesday. When we first came into the city, Dave, I started to panic because when we came into the tunnels on a Tuesday, not a Monday, because everybody at that point was saying Monday, people still don't come to the city. I started to panic because the last time I'd ever seen New York that deserted was after 9/11, because I was there. And then I was like, okay, it's all good. My panic was ridiculous. But once Travis and I did this walk, there was not a single person in front of that GM building. Not a single person.
So the limos were no longer making money there.
No limos. Now, is Times Square busy? Of course. But all of these other hubs, we walked from top to bottom. We went down, visited the site.
Boarded up windows.
Or the lights are on, but there's nobody home.
A tractor display, right?
Right.
Car display,
right.
where there's actually no one inside.
Right.
One of those things.
Yes.
Fake stores, like in the malls.
Absolutely. And it's very similar to like when I was down in Miami living in a ghost condo and looking around at night near, in Aventura, and there were no lights on, 50-story buildings. And in the condo I was in, I was probably one of 5 people. I think that thing probably had 300 units that were there, and the pool didn't work. It was a brand new building. The elevator would go out most time, like once a week. So we are, this is all a mirage. I mean, they have just tried whatever they can to convince us that reality is different than what it is.
And this is by pumping money into it.
You should see what they're doing in Phoenix. I see more projects starting. They're building a new 28,000 square foot football practice facility, clearing out another area for more homes, more apartments going up, next phases of them. It's unbelievable. But yet, what was the report that just came out a couple days ago in regards to rents? How rents are dropping.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Why do they keep building then?
Well, once you start, you get committed to the point where your only hope is that somehow you can outlast the slowdown, right?
That's what I've heard as well.
You've sunk enough money in where you say, look, the only way out of this mess is going through it, not back. Is that correct?
That is what I hear from everybody in this industry.
And then you end up with a partially built facility that's just girders and no owner, right? That's when you go absolute belly up.
I remember you saying that, Dave. I remember I had moved to Phoenix in '06, and they had built an exit off the highway, and then the market crashed in '08. They had finished the bridge above the highway and the ramps to get off and on, but they never paved the road to connect it with the other road, so they never opened it. And now it's open,
So it's
but
another bridge to nowhere.
literally, like it was literally, you could see the ramps, but you couldn't get off or on it. It was never completed.
But the absurdity
now it
is that's the kind of thing that federal money should have gone to, in theory. But I mean, this modern monetary theory and why it's such a bad idea, and why it was talked about intensely for only 1 year and then it went away again, I don't know. But so when does this all start? When does it become undeniable that we are heading for the bridge abutment? It feels like it's soon.
I feel like we're in it now. I mean, just yesterday with Carolyn Levitt saying the CPI numbers, which now they're saying they might even be out by now, that they're going to be out, but something was going to be omitted today from the October numbers. But as of yesterday, the system had been damaged. I don't know how that, and nobody, I watched her press conference yesterday. Nobody asked about that. She made the statement and nobody asked.
You get booted out if you ask, Mike.
Which is so funny to me because you've got Wright media that it's the same thing. It's the same thing, just a different narrative. And that's where I said to people, we're going down the same path. It's just under a different guise right now. People are like, oh, you're so black-pilled. Oh, we're winning. Okay.
Well, this is the complacency bubble. The NASDAQ's up 18% year to date. In 2020, where the entire global economy got completely and utterly shut down. My opening paragraph, I talked about a guy waking up from a long COVID coma, total brain fog, and he looked up at the chyron going across the bottom of the screen. It says markets up 13% year to date. The markets gained 13% during the COVID shutdown.
And that's why I jumped back into macro. It's because I saw that, was like, what is happening? And that, I mean, honestly, that's where my journey began, was looking at the stock market and going, what in the world?
The S&P is up 15% year to date. The S&P, according to Buffett, can be expected to grow on an inflation-adjusted basis about 4% a year sustainably. And that's not considering starting valuation. That's just in perpetuity, right? He said about 4% growth in the equity markets is the sustainable rate of growth. And then, of course, if you pay dearly for stupid assets at the top, then you're toast. And if you buy great assets at the bottom, then you're going to make more than that, which is what his forte is. So right now, people are buying stupid assets, paying dearly, and at some point it's going to be dry. I watch the comment section, and the comments are getting increasingly vitriolic about having been wrong for so long. When am I going to admit I was wrong?
Yeah.
And I'm going, you're making the case for me right here, and the fact that you somehow are so cocky, and you're so convinced that this is a sustainable prosperity. And I think the Fed, by the way, is out of bullets in the sense that I think they're going to find themselves boxed in. Whereas for the last 40 years, they've had the luxury of dropping rates steadily. And every time they needed to, they had room to do it. And I think the last time they ran out of room, and now, so the bear claw chopped them right in the groin. And this time they're going to hit the end of the chain.
You don't think, but don't you know what I always come back to though? And I know I'm oversimplifying it and none of this is simple, but these people are so creative how they can just somehow keep it together for a little while longer.
That's the complacency bubble, Michael.
But don't you think, I mean, that's where I come back. I'm like, they'll figure something out again that we're not even.
That's the complacency bubble. That's the complacency bubble.
So one thing that I can tell you for sure is that driving across this country, Americans know that this is not a good economy, and they can articulate Fed intervention in a way that you would not expect someone that you just meet on the
At
street
the
to even talk
7-Eleven,
about
at
it.
the 7-Eleven,
At the
you can
7-Eleven.
mention something else, and they go,
Right.
yeah, and that goddamn Powell, blah blah blah, and you're going, holy shit, this guy's not supposed to know this shit.
Right. And they do. And by the way, 42 million Americans almost just didn't get their SNAP benefits. I think, I mean, that alone, I mean, is huge. And so whoever you are, whatever you're doing, like that is a big warning sign. And it's going to strike fear in the heart of that complacency. I think, Dave, yes, did they save it one more time? But I can tell you around here, because I live in a very poor area, people were freaking out. I was talking to my local pastor. We were making plans because it was going to be a very big deal. And so I think that with each of these little things, right, there's like another chink in the armor. And so I think that we are closer now, Mike, than we have been in a very long time. And sure, could they rug pull something like, you know, what they did with SVB, et cetera? I don't think they can now. I think they are out of
SVB. What did they do?
You
with
asked
SVB?
me that before. I don't know. I think it's probably private swap lines we don't know any about. We'll learn about in 10. I don't know.
Just backroom deals that just they shove trillions of dollars into the system somewhere. Without telling us.
And does the whole thing tie into? I was talking about our mutual friend Matt Smith's Substack article, "The Civil War, Fake Civil War," where these things that you're talking about, cutting SNAP benefits, continuing to build the fear into people, right? And then providing solutions that are going to keep you safe. And that's where the COVID pandemic was a perfect test run.
Just save me.
And people will fall for it. So is that at the end goal? And that's where, the tech bros and all that comes into play, because these instruments are being set up to potentially keep us all protected.
I personally think we might be giving the tech bros too much credit, and also the globalists, whoever they are. Like, if they really are who we often hear they are from Whitney Webb and others, then their lines have been diluted in horrible ways. So should we really trust their intellect? But have you guys ever seen that show called The Patriot? It was, I think, on Netflix.
The family that were a bunch of spies?
Yes.
They were married?
Well, yeah, I think he was married, but he was kind of distanced from but his dad was a spy, and he's a spy, but his dad needs him to go do this. His dad's in the CIA and gets told
I'm not sure I know this one.
On like a certain nuclear, you must know a little because you got the spy part, right? But
but I was thinking of a couple where the husband starts liking America and the wife, who's still a Soviet.
Oh no, that's The Americans. That's also
The Americans. Yeah.
The Americans, yeah. So The Patriot, the dad gets the son to go. The dad gets told, no, you can't go do this op you want to do, which is like regime change kind of, but back deal, small nuke thing. And so this guy gets put into this operation, but it's not really sanctioned. And just from there, it's hilarious. Like, he shows up at work, they give him a driver's license, but it doesn't have a full Social Security on it or something like this. So the HR guy starts following him around saying, you gave me some wrong information. I can't confirm your identity. And so the next thing he has to push the HR guy into the street. Or no, his competition is so he pushed into the street. Anyway, the whole show is so comical because I think we think that our intelligence agencies are just the smartest people. The system is slick and etc. But if you watch this show, it is just a comedy of errors. We're not as slick as we think, and this is why you can't type your name into a database and suddenly all of your stuff pops up, and which would be helpful to a doctor. So I don't know. I think if you want to laugh, watch that show because it is hysterical.
But I think the intelligence agencies are a sleeper cell model at this point. I don't think the head of the CIA or the head of the FBI knows what the rest of the FBI and CIA are doing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think these guys are. I mean, if you're running drugs and kids and stuff for the CIA, there's no question that you are running your own little operation too, right?
Yes.
You're not going to be running $1 billion for the CIA and not getting your VIG, right?
Right.
Which means therefore they're going to be like mob families, small sleeper cells, and each one's going to have a street corner they get to work with. And
have you read the Fort Bragg Cartel? I think that's the name of it. I'm reading it right now. The Fort Bragg Cartel.
I'll tell you what I read. I read Peter Turchin's book.
Yeah, The End Times. Yep.
Yeah, I found it. I found it got tiring. It got self-promotional at the end where they're talking about their database and stuff. And
yeah.
What's it called? The one you just liked?
The Fort Bragg Cartel. I mean, Dave, you are gonna be. It's another one of those mind-blowing where basically vets learned, in Vietnam and other places how to run drugs and just, recreated it here. And it goes into sort of like into this cartel in Fort Bragg of these Delta forces. You are going to enjoy this book, but it's a little terrifying.
I just ordered it.
Oh.
Well, $10 a pop. It's easier than putting it on a list, right?
Well, I ordered this morning the moth and the lung, moth and the lung,
moth and the iron lung. Moth and the iron lung. You will be amazed by that book. That's a great book.
So I did my one click earlier this morning to order that book. But again, so I agree with you on the sleeper cells, and I agree. I mean, it's just I feel like so many of these myths are getting debunked, and but I think that we're still suffering under sort of mass delusion on a lot of stuff. But I don't know. It feels like it's unraveling. It really does. But we'll see.
But you don't have to keep a secret. Everyone always says, how could you keep a secret? I said, you don't have to. We know the CIA whacked Kennedy or someone like the CIA, right? You just have to contain the response to it.
Right.
And there's you give me a keyword and I will give you a conspiracy. I can do it. And they all hold up. That's the problem. Apparently Tucker had this Dane Wigington guy on. I haven't listened to it yet, but he's a chemtrail guy. And the chemtrail story, it's in my field of view, but it's not one where I go, holy shit, they're dead right. I'm still open-minded. The pole shifting theory, which has some very smart people's attention, is again on my radar, but not endorsed. I've spent no time going after the moon landing because it doesn't get me anywhere. But there are some provocative details of the moon landing that you go, I cannot explain that. Like when the guys came back from the moon and the guy said he didn't see any stars. Right at the press conference, he says, we didn't see any stars. He kind of acted like he didn't know what to say. And I'm going, you're standing on the moon. I think the stars would be pretty sparkly from the moon. And there were some strange things. But it doesn't get me anywhere. Okay, we didn't go to the moon. Now what do I do with that, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think there's been a war in the last 150 years that wasn't started on what people like to call a false pretense, but the actual grammatically correct term is just pretense, because pretense means false.
Right.
So
right.
That drives me nuts, but I'm not sure I'm a happier guy by studying this stuff. And that's the fork in the road that I'm facing right now. Is I'm trying to figure out if I really want to spend the next, decade or two of my life getting the shit kicked out of me by people who don't like my opinions, and kicking the shit out of people I don't like their opinions, and I enjoy these chats, so I don't want to give them up, I think, but I watch some of these guys who do battle. Let's just take Tucker. Tucker just is doing battle almost unnecessarily, in my opinion. So I don't know what he's up to. But I could not possibly stand getting the flack that he gets. It would make me so wretched, which is why I could not be in a political office. It's not that I need to be loved, but I would not be able to open up the newspaper every morning and look and read lie after lie about who I am.
No, he doesn't. That's what he doesn't even read the papers anymore. His staff like prints out stuff for him. He doesn't go on socials. He doesn't read anything himself unless they print it and put it in front of him.
He doesn't even get emails.
Right.
Everything's by text.
Right. So I think it's, are you a happier person? Probably not. Is the world a better place? Probably. So I think that's where, for me, like just listening kind of to your conversation with Aaron about that and the fork in the road. I mean, the vitriol has gotten worse. I can feel it. It's happening to me too. I felt like Wonder Woman with my, bracelets after trying to just talk about a 50-year mortgage, for heaven's sakes. I mean, it's a mortgage. Like what? How can people get that angry? But I think, so what I think at least is like, it's about educating the public and teaching them how to think, Dave. And they don't have people teaching them how to think. No. They have people telling them how to think. And
well, here's a fundamental problem. Fundamental problem is feminists won't like this. I support feminism. I support women's right to have careers. I always felt that my mother's life was miserable because she didn't have purpose. And any woman who depends on me to have purpose in life is already sort of way out over their skis. But I think you can make the argument that now that women who are smart can now go be doctors and lawyers and physicists and you name it. One of the things it did is that it gutted the nursing and teaching profession of tremendous talent. So I had teachers when I was a kid who were smarter than shit. These women would not be teachers in this modern era. They're beginning, and I don't want to insult the teachers, but if you look at some of those videos they're making, you go, really, that person's teaching kids? I'm not comfortable with that. There's just too many nose rings on that person, and so the kids are getting lousy teachers. I mean, my favorite teacher of all time was a woman who was a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Reserve. And you didn't push her around. I can tell you that much. But she was phenomenal. She was inspiring. And so I just don't. And she was Miss Mitchell. She was probably gay, She's probably, but I don't think women joining the Marines back in those days, I don't think they were highly feminine.
I think we're going down. I think we're going down the lane. Go ahead, Melody. Sorry.
Dave, you have been an inspiration to me, and you have been someone that I've admired for being able to traverse very difficult terrain and to be able to remain somewhat open-minded and not get too married to any narrative, too bogged down, too ideological, and that is something people need to see. And so I understand, because I feel there are days it's hard to get out of bed because I open my phone and somebody said something horrible. And I'm just like, whoa, it's like, wow, that came out of nowhere. Like,
you'll post a tweet. You'll post a tweet and someone will say, this bitch doesn't even understand X. And you go, just because my short tweet didn't include a long dissertation on X doesn't mean I understand.
Read, like, I love when people try to tell me I don't understand mortgage. It's like, oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay,
gotcha. And a lot of them are bots. So two accounts that I knew were bots and that responded on my 50-year tweet. One of my followers gave me pictures of the other stuff that they were tweeting, and they both had the same exactly Israel narrative. So these are, and so that's what I have to tell myself. And the fact that I don't like it. I hate it. It makes me sick to my stomach sometimes, but I can. And there are so few people left, Dave, that can just stand up to it, can take it, can deal with it. And so I wanted to share that with you, that honestly, like watching you over the years, it was a freeing that I needed because I had been locked down in so many different ways in academics. I mean, because we were locked down there when I was in graduate school, in the corporate world. And so I think what you do is very important. And I don't give a crap that that stupid old man is yelling. I mean, like, I don't even want to say his name, but it's who Tucker was talking about in his recent show. It's like he's an idiot. I mean, no one should take.
Is his name Mark?
Yeah, no one should really take him seriously. And so these people don't deserve even your thought about. I mean, like, I think you have to keep doing what you're doing, and they don't matter. They really
What disappoints me.
I think, Melody, you got to wrap up. Not to interrupt you, Dave, but I think, Melody, you got to wrap up, right?
Yeah, like 2 minutes, but I can listen to his last point.
What disappoints me is not Mark Levin or Ted Cruz, because they really are losers. The guy who has disappointed me pretty profoundly is Victor Davis Hanson, who I think of as a scholar, but it's pretty clear to me that he is now jumping on the "we must destroy Tucker" bandwagon, and I'm getting winged by his diatribes, and I was okay with the idea of him picking on me as a blog or as an interview or something like that, but he keeps referring to me, and I'm irrelevant, but I'm a talking point, and it means, what disappoints me is that Victor is selling his soul, because he's a famous historian, yet he's making very specious arguments about history that I am actually going to publish, sort of a point-by-point takedown of how bad his arguments are, and they are bad. And I hope Victor goes back to being a historian and not a puppet of the right wing, certain wing of the Republican Party.
And just think, though, like, if there was no one out there like you, nobody else would know that. And so I think that is the purpose that we serve, and it is a hard job. But
yeah, I don't like it.
And I don't like it either. But I also feel I have a purpose in it. And so, that's how I get myself out of bed, is I see a real purpose, because if I can save one 25-year-old Dave from buying a house that sends him into foreclosure and destroys his family, then that's worth it, so that's and honestly, like, I credit you with opening my mind in a lot of ways that, I mean, it had been open before, but it got shut. And so I want you to hear that. I'm not saying, like, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm just telling you that the world would not be a better place if you step back. In fact, it would be much worse. So.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm not leaving Twitter.
Good. Good.
I think I've come to terms with what I'm going to write this year. I don't think I'm going to not write, but it's going to be highly truncated, if for no other reason, because I have stalled long enough that I can't write what I would normally write. The clock, I've almost I've sort of committed suicide on a 300-page document. But I also, part of it's because all the shit that I, in theory, would write about, I don't want to write about. I've decided. Yeah. And what I don't want to be, and I think Anna Kasparian, who's a fascinatingly transforming woman now.
I've been trying to connect with her, man.
She did a Tucker interview, and I think it had such an effect on her, because she realized the other side is not nuts. And you have to realize the other side is not nuts. And I don't want to write about this stuff, but I am going to write enough to defend myself against the attackers and show what a bunch of assholes they are. And actually, I've already got the title. If you look at there's a foreshadowing of it in my Twitter feed. My pinned tweet now is a 404 error. And that's going to be the title of my year in review, is 404 error. And,
cool.
So
that's
cool.
good.
Melody,
I'll say something.
M3_Melody on X Twitter, M3 Melody Substack, M3 Melody YouTube.
Dave, let me speak on your behalf. Under your desk, and you can find him on X, David V. Collum. For those who enjoy this conversation, I put put everything up on Substack early for paid subscribers. So please, if you like what I'm doing, become a paid subscriber. And if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble or listening, feel free to comment, like it, comment, share it. And thank you both for doing this again. And I'm sure it won't be too long before we talk in the future.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Mic drop.
Thank you, Mikey.